Good morning. This is our last lesson in Proverbs. And it's a good lesson. It is chapter 31, which is the proverb that holds the poem of the virtuous woman. And I don't know if we think enough about the fact that we are always being observed. I've mentioned on here before, I'm in the midst of watching all these Blue Bloods. It's a series on television about police department work, and I didn't watch it when it first came out, and it's been out about 10 years, so we've been binge watching it, a couple of episodes a night, and it's a very good movie. There's not a lot of foul language in it or bad scenes, and it's about police work. But one thing comes to mind. Anytime there's a crime, the first thing the detectives do is they want to pull all the cameras. Because what they realize today is almost everything is recorded somewhere. Even in our subdivision here, I will sometimes see on our website video put up of someone stealing something or trying to break into a car. But the point is they were always under surveillance. In real estate, I teach a class on contracts and ethics, and I always tell people, always know this, and tell your buyers this. When you go in a house today, it's most likely that you will be under video surveillance and audio surveillance while you're there. So don't go into the house and say, oh my goodness, we got to have this house, offer them whatever they want, because the seller could very well be watching you say that. The point is in life, we're observed, and people get an opinion of us all the time, and they watch for signs of who we are. I hate to say this, but even in my own neighborhood, and I drive out the street, there's certain neighbors I've never really physically met or talked to. I know who they are. Some are retired, they're not in the workforce, but I can't help but come to an opinion based upon just what I observe. And sometimes that can be wrong, but nevertheless, we are people who will form opinions on what we observe. And that's what we're going to learn today, is how we can lead a life that when people observe us, they come forward with a good opinion of us, and hopefully we'll have the testimony of this person. Proverbs 30 is written by Agur, A-G-U-R. People don't know who he is. He is the author of that chapter. Some people say it's just a name that Solomon wrote under, but most say no, it was probably either one of his scribes or someone else that wrote it down. But nevertheless, God inspired it to be putting this into the Bible. 31 is Lemuel, King Lemuel, and really 31 of the virtuous woman is a poem given to King Lemuel by his mother of what to look for in a virtuous woman. But these are things that bring us to today's lesson. And let's just get right at it, because I'm under conviction that I got to start doing this a little quicker. I cannot take as much time as I have been. But chapter 31 in verse 10 through 11 and 12, we see the first things, and let's read those, of the identity of what to be observed in this virtual woman. I don't know if this woman ever existed in reality, or if it was a poem that his mother put together and on all the perfect aspects, what to look for in a woman. Verse 10, 11, and 12. Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies, rarer than rubies. The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil or need of substance, more or less. She would do him good and not evil all the days of their lives. Those three verses have a lot of stuff in it. They really do. Now, we don't know the name of this woman, and there may not even be a real woman, but we do know that Ruth is here, and that same word virtuous, which means noble, is the same word that Boaz used to describe Ruth in chapter 3 of Ruth, verse 11. It's actually a same word that can be applied to a man that is courageous and heroic. So the Hebrew phrase here, virtuous or honorable, is applicable to both men and women. And Boaz showed it. As first. And her husband doth safely trust in her. If there's one word that a virtuous woman will instill in a husband, it's trust. Now, it can be said that that's a two-way street. Absolutely. But a man needs to trust his wife above all other things. And trust doesn't come at the marriage ceremony. You may have an indication of it, but trust is built by small actions throughout the marriage process. So when you reach a point, a man who is living with a virtuous, noble wife will trust her. She has earned that trust through her actions. And that he will trust her, and he doesn't need substance. Trust her with substance? Yes. Yes, trust her with that substance. You know, it's important. Over the years, I was thinking, of course, the only example I have of a virtuous woman is my wife, and I think she is rare. She is virtuous. If there is a person, one woman that I know, and I know I'm prejudiced, that is her. My wife has never, I would say she never completely agrees with everything I do, but never in 50-some years of marriage has she ever been against me. And there's a difference. She may not support everything I do, but she always supports who I am. And if you're a wife listening to me, get this. Your husband's going to make some mistakes and do some stupid things, which you don't necessarily have to support those things. But you do have to support him. And there's a grave difference there. There are times when my wife will not defend my actions, but she'll defend me. I'm sure his intentions were good. I don't know if he probably didn't mean she's going to defend me, and not my actions, but me. And that is a difference that you need to make forward, because that involves trust. If you want to destroy trust in your husband, wife, or in your, as a wife, your husband, violate that trust. Violate that trust. It's important. A spouse who disrespects their partner destroys trust in their marriage. And I'm going to tell you, early in my Christian life, and really even probably before that, but definitely since I become a Christian and knew what it was like to have a Christian marriage, and that was after we were married, we both became Christians, I cannot stand to be in the presence of a husband and wife who ridicule each other or disrespect one another. I don't care what they've done, but if they disrespect one another, I have a good friend of mine, and he's been a friend for a while, but he had a bad habit of always using snide remarks about his wife, about her looks or about what she did or whatever. She eventually left, but at the same time, it used to hurt me, and I spoke to him about it. We were close enough that I could speak to him. Do not disrespect your wife in public. And don't do it in front of me, because this lowers my opinion of you. The same with a husband or a wife. We have to trust that we have one person that supports us, not what we do, but us in every situation. Why? That builds that trust. She had no need of spoil. She would do him good and not evil all the days of her life. She seeketh wool and flax and worketh willingly with her hands. Oh my goodness, she said, oh, there she is. There's the wife, the slave. Well, there's a couple of things you need to look at here. First off, back then, wool, when they sheared it, was just a mess. And it's hard work to turn wool into fabric. And it's harder work to turn flax, which is a plant that you have to strip the bark of and turn it into a linen piece that requires tremendous work. Tremendous work to do that. And she works willingly. Now, there's a difference between working because you have to and working willingly. I always tell people, people who own their own business work day and night. They are willful. They will work in their business. And they expect their employees to do that, but employees work by the time clock, and they just want to do their time and go home. Owners they work willingly. They're invested. And there's an important difference here, and there's important lessons for households. And that is this: that household belongs to the wife. That's right. She should be given the authority to run it and the resources to run it properly. Now, there's a lot of decisions in our life that I will make. What type of lawnmower we'll buy usually be my decision. And if I want to buy a truck or a vehicle, I have a lot to say about that. But when it comes to our house, I learned a long time ago, that's Henry's domain. If she asks my opinion, I will give it, but her opinion trumps mine in the house. Whether we renovate it, what we do to it, what resources we have in it, those primarily is her authority. And that's biblical positioning. And she will willingly, she works herself to death. She keeps this house clean. She does, a lot of work in here. Now you say, well, Jim, you're retired. Can you help? Yeah, I can help. I'm not real good at it. I wash dishes at time to time, and I'll do some things. I take care of all the yard work and everything, but the house is hers, and I do what she tells me to in this house. She loves to renovate a room, and we just got through renovating her one of the bedrooms, and it was here. Put this here. I ordered that. She has full authority to use whatever resources to get what we have within, our budget, and put it up. And she'll say, what do you think about this color or that color? And sometimes I'll say. And she wants to please me with it. But at the same time, I always end up with this, Henry, that's your decision. And whatever you decide, I'm sure I'll be happy with. Now, husbands, take that aboard. Take that aboard. I give her, she has all the finances. I mean, she pays the bills. She runs this household. I don't know what the electric bill is. If something happens to her, they'll come and take things from me. They'll turn off my power and water, and they'll take it. Because this is her household. I come home, I sleep, I work the yard work, I do the material repair work and stuff like that. But it's her budget, her household, and it's there. Sometimes women, I know I've seen families where a man doesn't trust his wife with money. She has to go to him to buy anything. Well, that shows you don't trust her. And that lack of trust in you will cost you from her being this type of woman. Let's move on. That's why she works willingly. She is like a merchant ship. She bringeth her food from afar. Now, first off is understand that in Solomon's day, he had the commerce of, he would take his goods from this area and ship them out, and he bought from other areas. So merchandise was coming from all over to this area, to Jerusalem. So she is like one of those merchantesses. She bringeth her food from afar. She'll go wherever it's at. The substance of that household is her responsibility. She rises also while it is yet night, and giveth meat to her household. I always say, well, see there? The woman should get up and make breakfast. No, but she is responsible to make sure her household is fed and her servants get a portion. And that word portion could be interpreted to mean duties also. She gets the household going in the morning. She rises early. And also in verse 16 it says, she considereth a field and buyeth it. With the fruit of her hands, she planteth a vineyard. She has such authority. That speaks to her authority. She has such authority, and her husband trusts her so that if she wants to expand her household and buy an adjacent field and create a vineyard so that she can get more food in, she has that authority. Now, she'll consider it. There's a lot of power in that word consider. That means she takes the time to see if it's financially feasible or financially profitable. Because the lady was a merchant. And she would do that. She girdeth her loins up with strength, and strengtheneth her arms. She perceived that her merchandise is good, and her candle goeth not out by night. She layeth her hands to the spindle, and her hands hold the distaff. Now, verses 20 through 22 reveal another element of her. She stretches out her hand to the poor. Yea, she reaches forth her hand to the needy. The virtuous woman has a good heart. If there's a valid need, she'll do what she can. She's the first one there when there's a need. When there's someone in need, she's there. I know that I watch Henry. If one of her people in her prayer group, she's always praying for those people. She's praying for, and she has care for that. I've seen her go out and take a meal here or there. She's out there having a good heart. In verse 21, she is not afraid of the snow for all her household are clothed with scarlet. She prepares. I can't help when I read that to think about my mother. And those of you who had mothers born around the turn of the century in the 20s or 30s or teens. My mother's born in 1921. My mother had a basement and a cellar, and she canned food. Bless her heart, when Mom died, after Dad had died, and we went up there were cans of vegetables and tomatoes that went back row upon row upon row. Some of this back row here were spoiled and rusted, but she wanted to make sure we were prepared. You know why? Because she went through a time of the Depression, and she went through times when the mines didn't work, where she was hungry. There was not the welfare system there is today. There wasn't any e-cards or that kind of stuff or whatever. And during those times, if you wasn't prepared, you and your family could go hungry. Actually go hungry. That was a different time. And so the wife makes sure that it's prepared. I looked at this short little pandemic scare we had here. And today, I don't think that most households are prepared for any tragedy, for any duration. If we had to go for a month or 30 days and you couldn't get to the store, how many of you go hungry? Well, you may be eating canned goods for a while or a mess, but if you're in charge of that household, make sure you're prepared. Because I think, if not in my lifetime, definitely in the short period coming, there will be a time when you need to be prepared. She is a prepared woman. She maketh herself, I like 22, she maketh herself coverings of tapestry. Her clothing is silk and purple. Wonder what that? Well, silk and purple speak to quality. She cared what she looked like. In today's world, when people go to Walmart wearing their pajamas, that's not honorable. It doesn't mean you have to braid yourself up and everything else. But before you leave the house, if you want to be this virtuous woman, you have to be concerned how you look. You know, since I've retired, I used to wear a suit and tie 6 days a week. Or not a suit, but at least a coat and tie. And I've gotten a little sloppy. I hate a tie. I got a 19-inch neck, so tying a tie around it is always a horrible experience. So I was glad to get rid of them ties. But I tell you, if we get ready to go out somewhere, she looks me over. She'll say, Jim, you need to go comb your hair. You did that. But I guarantee you one thing. When Henry gets up, before she leaves this house, she makes sure she looks good. And she makes sure she looks good for me. I remember when we were early on, and I was in the Navy as an E2 or something, and we got married, and we had no money or whatever. And right before she knew what time I would come home when I was going to nuclear power school, and she'd do her hair and fix up, put that makeup on, because when I walked in the door, I had a virtuous woman who took time to dress well and look well. And verse 22 validates that. And then it also affects her husband and how he's looked at. Her husband is known at the gates. Now, first off, Israel had walls around it, and all the towns did, and they had gates in these walls, and that's where the commerce would come in, and that's where the businessmen or the elders of the city would sit and talk. And that was a discussion place, and they would sit there. And a man that walked in who had a good reputation would be noted. And it said her husband is known in the gates when he sitteth. Why is he known there? Because of the reputation of his household, which is the responsibility of this noble woman. She maketh fine linen. not just linen, but fine linen, and selleth it, and delivereth girdles unto the merchant. Strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. Strength and honor. A lot of men are afraid of a strong woman. They should not be. A virtuous woman is going to be strong. They're going to know the Word of God. They're going to be people who are decisive. They're going to be strong, virtuous people. Just like a strong, virtuous, Hebraic, a man who is strong in courage. It's the same word that defines a virtuous woman. So to think that a good Christian woman is this meek little mealy-mouthed person that gets kicked around, that has no strength, and is just walking 10 steps behind her husband is a false picture of what a virtuous woman is. A virtuous woman will respect her husband, but also has the courage to give her opinion on what he does. Who he is and what he does are two different things. She will always support who he is, but she will not always support what he does. That's a difference. She openeth her mouth with wisdom, and her tongue in the law of kindness. She is wise, but her tongue has kindness. She looketh well to the ways of her household, and eateth not the bread of idleness. She's not a lazy lady, but she's also not a vicious lady. She has what kind of tongue? A kindness. Her tongue in the law of kindness. A virtuous woman does not backbite, does not condemn. She has kind words. She is not an angry, vicious woman who is critical out loud about everything. No, she has a kind tongue. That's critical. Kindness. Let's move on. Verses 28 and 29, one of the key parts of this text. Her children arise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, he praiseth her. Now this is the result. If there is an honorable woman in the household, her children rise up and call her blessed, and her husband honoreth her and praises her. A virtuous woman doesn't get a lot of pay for all the hard work they do and for being honorable. But one of the things they need to be paid is attention by their husband and their children. And husbands, make sure your children honor their mother. I know that many of you may disagree with this, but I had two boys. I said, boys, they went to a Christian school. I said, boys, here's the rules. Do not go over there and be a bully or start fighting or whatever. I don't want any violence. However, if someone strikes you first, I expect you to fight. Or if anyone dishonors your mother verbally, I expect you to fight. Ooh, you're promoting violence. No, I'm promoting that I want to raise my boys that no one dishonors their mother. If a boy will not protect the honor of his mother, he will not protect the honor of his wife. And one of the things I will never tolerate is my children disrespecting their mother in whatever shape or form. I don't have to worry about that. I got two boys that love their mother. Quite frankly, they both may call me about business matters, but when they need prayer, they call mommy. When they need what she can do, and only she can do, they still call their mother. They're not mama boys, if you know either one of them. But they know who can get a hold of God and petition on their behalf, and who has in the past faithfully. That's critical. But I will not tolerate a disrespect to my wife. She has earned respect, and she has earned praise. And I expect on her birthday for my children and grandchildren to call her, to write her something, and to get her something. If my children do not respect in deed and word their mother, they will answer to me. And I don't care how old they are. And my grandchildren, I will do the same thing. That's critical. Now, the mothers of my grandchildren have raised them such that they are blessing. They love their grandmother, my wife, and they show respect and love and praise for her. My boys married up just like I did, and they got good wives that taught them how to respect their mother. Verse 30 and 31. Favor is deceitful, and beauty is vain. But a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. That when I was growing up, it says if you want to be happy for the rest of your life, make an ugly woman your wife. I'm not saying that, and definitely I was lucky enough to get a beautiful woman. But at the same time, beauty will fade. But a person who honors God will always be beautiful, regardless of how they physically change with age. My wife has never been more beautiful than she is today. Give her the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her at the gates. Let me tell you something, gentlemen. Make sure your wife has everything she needs to run the household, and then get out of the way. Your opinion may be solicited, but if it's not, go with what she decides for the household. If I can give you a piece of advice, that's the thing to do. And trust your wife. If you don't trust her by now, you've made a big mistake. It's critical that you trust your wife. Okay. Thank goodness we're going back to church today, so I'm looking forward to seeing and sitting in the service. See you next time. We'll be in Solomon's.